Have you ever stopped and wondered, who is it that's wondering? When you say, I, what exactly are you referring to? Most people never pause to ask this. They take it for granted, as though the I were something obvious, solid, and continuous. I am me, they say. That's all there is to it. But the strange thing is, when you look closely, that me begins to dissolve. It's like grasping smoke with your hands. The tighter you clutch it, the faster it disappears. You see, the self, the one you've been searching for, protecting, defining, comparing, doesn't really exist in the way you think it does. It's a story. A rather convincing one, I admit. But a story nonetheless. The self is like the center of a whirlpool. There's movement, there's shape, there's direction, but no solid thing. It's a pattern. A dance of memories, sensations, and thoughts swirling together for a little while before dissolving back into the sea of being. Now, you might say, but Alan, I feel myself. I know I exist. I can think, remember, act, decide. Yes, of course. There is experience. There is awareness. But the one having that experience, the I you believe to be the owner of awareness, that's the illusion. It's rather like a flame believing it burns by itself, forgetting that it depends entirely on oxygen, on the wick, on the candle, on everything around it. There is no isolated flame, only the whole process of burning. Likewise, there is no isolated you. You are the entire process, of thinking, breathing, feeling, being, the universe expressing itself as a temporary pattern called you. But let's slow down, because this is a delicate point. When people first hear that the self doesn't exist, they often feel uneasy, even frightened. Because if there's no self, then who's living? Who's loving? Who's dying? It sounds, at first, like a kind of spiritual nihilism. But it's not. It's not that you don't exist, it's that you don't exist separately. What you call yourself is not an island floating in a void. It's more like a wave, part of the ocean, inseparable from the water that gives it form. A wave doesn't exist apart from the ocean, it is the ocean, taking a particular shape for a little while. And so it is with you. You are not a separate entity moving through life. You are life, moving through the form called you. The trouble begins when the wave starts saying, I am the ocean, and then gets terrified at the thought of disappearing. It wants to keep its shape forever. It forgets that the beauty of the wave is precisely that it rises and falls. We live in a culture obsessed with defining, labeling, and protecting this thing we call the self. We create identities, careers, profiles, reputations, and we defend them like fortresses. We say, this is me. This is who I am. And then we spend the rest of our lives terrified that someone will take it away. But who is that me? A name? A body? A collection of memories? When you go to sleep at night, the self disappears, and yet, when you wake, you say, ah yes, I am back. But who was gone? And who came back? You see, the mind is constantly stitching together little moments of experience into a story called I. It's a marvelous storyteller, and a rather persuasive one. But the story is not the reality. Imagine a movie projector shining light through film. The images move, the characters speak, the drama unfolds, and yet, behind it all, there's just light flickering. Without the light, the movie is nothing. You are that light. Not the characters, not the story, not the drama, but the pure awareness through which all of it passes. So when you say, I'm searching for myself, it's like a flame searching for fire. You are already what you seek. The very act of searching implies separation, and that's the trap. The more you look for yourself, the further away you go. Because the self you imagine finding, that fixed, independent, permanent thing, does not exist. It's a mirage. A phantom created by thought, a thought that says, I am thinking. But there's no thinker behind the thought, just as there's no doer behind the doing. There is only this, the happening of life, the spontaneous unfolding of the universe in this moment. Let's play with this idea for a moment. When you move your hand, do you consciously control every muscle, every fiber, every neuron firing? Of course not. The body moves. The heart beats. The lungs breathe. The brain thinks. And yet you say, I am doing it. It's a marvelous illusion of authorship. You are the total event, the sound, the movement, the breath, all of it happening as one seamless process. You are not the puppeteer pulling the strings. You are the dance itself. And when you begin to see that, something extraordinary happens. The anxiety of control begins to fade. The compulsive need to define yourself, to defend your identity, to prove your worth, all of that begins to loosen. Because what you are cannot be threatened. It has no edges. No boundaries. It cannot die, because it was never born. It simply is. But to see this, to truly see it, you must stop trying. Because every attempt to find yourself reinforces the illusion that there's a separate, you, doing the finding. It's like trying to bite your own teeth, or see your own eyes. The seeker and the sought are one and the same. The moment you stop searching, when you simply rest in the awareness that's always here, the truth reveals itself effortlessly. You don't discover it. You remember it. You remember that you were never separate from anything at all. And that moment of remembering, is what we call awakening. Now, what happens when you take this realization, that the self you're searching for doesn't exist, and bring it into the texture of ordinary life? You begin to see that most of our suffering comes from the belief in that imaginary self. The fear, the guilt, the endless comparisons, the craving to become someone, all of it depends upon the idea that there's a you inside, separate from everything else, steering the ship. But if there's no such pilot, then who's anxious? Who's afraid? The anxiety itself simply arises. The thoughts appear, the sensations move through the body, and then they fade. You don't do them. They happen, like waves upon water. You see, the mind has tricked you into thinking you're standing outside of life, managing it, shaping it, pushing it forward, as though you were some executive of existence. But that's the illusion. You were never standing apart. You are life. Just as the flame cannot burn itself, you cannot observe yourself from the outside. You are what's happening, not the one it's happening to. And when that dawns on you, something deep begins to relax. You stop holding your breath in the effort to be someone. You let go of that chronic tension, the invisible contraction of pretending to exist as a separate entity. Think of how much energy you spend trying to sustain this illusion. You must constantly remind yourself who you are, my name, my history, my goals, my opinions, my success. You polish your image, defend your boundaries, interpret every encounter through the lens of me. But the moment you pause, the moment you stop feeding that narrative, the me dissolves like mist. And in its place, there is a vast, simple presence, silent, open, luminous. Not a thing, not a thought, just awareness itself. And that's the truth of you. It's not what can be found. It's what remains when you stop searching. When you realize this, even fear begins to appear differently. Because fear depends on separation. You're afraid because you think something outside of you can hurt or take something from you. But when there's no you to lose anything, what's there to be afraid of? This doesn't mean you become indifferent or numb. Quite the opposite. You become more alive, because you're no longer hiding behind the fiction of control. You see the play for what it is, a cosmic improvisation, and you join it freely, without the heavy burden of me. You can laugh at yourself, weep for beauty, act with love, all without trying to prove that you exist. When you let go of being somebody, you become available to everything. Most people live their entire lives chasing this phantom self. They want to be better, smarter, more spiritual, more enlightened. They try to fix, improve, perfect the person they think they are. But who is that person? It's like trying to lift yourself by your own shoelaces. The one doing the improving is the very illusion that must dissolve. It's a clever trick the mind plays, the ego pretending to chase enlightenment, as if it could somehow earn the right to vanish. But enlightenment is not a prize the self wins. It's what's left when the self disappears. And it doesn't disappear by force or discipline, it disappears by seeing. By seeing that there's nothing to hold on to. That the hand reaching out was always made of the same emptiness it sought. So, you might say, Alan, if there's no self, how do I live? How do I make choices, love people, go to work, pay my bills? Ah, but look. You're already doing all of that, aren't you? Life has been living you all along. The body walks, the words speak, the thoughts appear, all without a central conductor. You don't need to decide to digest your food or make your heart beat. Those things happen by themselves. And in the same way, your so-called decisions arise from the total movement of life, from the infinite play of causes and conditions. You are like a melody being played, spontaneous, unrepeatable, without a separate player. When you truly see this, guilt and shame begin to melt away. Because guilt comes from believing that you should have done otherwise, that there was a separate you who could have controlled the unfolding of events. But when you understand that everything, your choices, your impulses, your mistakes, arise from the total field of existence, the burden of guilt becomes meaningless. You can take responsibility, yes, but not as an isolated controller. You take it as the universe taking responsibility for itself. That's a very different feeling. It's not shame. It's compassion. Because you see that everyone else is caught in the same illusion. They too are playing their part in the grand performance, thinking they are separate actors, when in fact there is only one vast improvisation happening. This realization doesn't make you passive. It makes you free. Because when you no longer act out of fear or self-defense, your actions become natural, effortless, kind. You no longer seek validation, because there's no you who needs to be validated. You don't cling to success, because success and failure lose their opposites when there's no center to compare. You don't crave love as a possession, because you realize, you are what love is doing. That's the beauty of it. When the illusion of self falls away, life doesn't stop, it begins, truly, for the first time. You laugh more easily. You forgive more quickly. You become transparent, not because you've gained something, but because you've stopped trying to be anything at all. And in that nothingness, there is infinite space for everything to be as it is. When you begin to live from this understanding, that the self you've been chasing doesn't actually exist, life starts to take on a new texture. It's lighter, more playful, yet paradoxically more profound. You see, once the I dissolves, everything else begins to shine. The world, which once seemed dull, hostile, or indifferent, suddenly glows with quiet intimacy. Every sound, every gesture, every fleeting detail feels alive, because there's no longer a you standing apart to label or judge it. You realize that life has never been happening to you, it has been happening as you. And there's no observer behind the curtain. There's only the show. This is why children seem so radiant, so effortless. They haven't yet constructed that heavy identity called me. They play, they cry, they laugh, and the moment passes. But as we grow older, society trains us to build a self, to become someone. We learn to say, I am this, not that. We learn comparison, pride, shame, and the exhausting game of self-maintenance. And yet, deep down, something in us remembers the freedom of not being anybody at all. You catch glimpses of it sometimes, in music, in laughter, in the breathless awe of a sunset. For a few seconds, you disappear. There is no watcher, no commentary, only the direct experience of being. That's the natural state. That's what I mean when I say, the self you're searching for doesn't exist. Because the moment you stop trying to find it, what's left is everything you were looking for. We spend so much time worrying about, who am I? We meditate, read, pray, travel, experiment, all in search of an answer that will finally make us feel whole. But what if the question itself is the problem? What if the very asking of, "Who am I?" assumes a separateness that isn't there? It's like asking, "Where is the edge of the sky?" You look and look, but the more you search, the more it eludes you, because the very idea of an edge is a misunderstanding of what the sky is. And so it is with the self. The more you look for its boundaries, its essence, its origin, the more you realize that it was never an object to begin with. It's not something in the universe. It is the universe, looking at itself through your eyes. There's an ancient game in consciousness. It hides itself in form, in trees, stars, people, and planets, and then pretends to be lost. It forgets itself completely, so that when it remembers, the joy is immense. And this game is happening right now, through you. You are the universe, pretending not to know itself, playing the divine game of hide and seek. You've hidden behind a name, a face, a story, and now you're slowly, beautifully, beginning to remember. That's what awakening really is. Not an achievement, not a personal accomplishment, but the end of the illusion that there was ever a person to achieve anything. You don't awaken, awakening happens. It's not something you do. It's what arises naturally when the false sense of control relaxes. Like the surface of a pond, when it's no longer stirred by wind, it reflects the sky perfectly. Now, this realization doesn't mean you vanish from daily life, or stop paying your taxes, or drift into some ethereal trance. No, the dance goes on. The play continues. But now, you know it's a play. You wear the mask lightly. You play your part, but you don't get lost in it. When joy comes, you laugh. When sorrow comes, you weep. But in both, there's a silent recognition, this too is the universe dancing. You see, freedom doesn't mean escaping the world. It means no longer being trapped by the idea of, you, who must escape it. Let's say you're looking at a flower. Ordinarily, you think, I am over here, and the flower is over there. But if you look closely, if you forget the word flower, and just see, you'll realize there's no gap at all. The seeing and the seen are one event. The awareness of the flower and the flower itself are inseparable. There isn't a watcher and a watched, there's only watching. And that's true for everything. There's no thinker and thought, just thinking. No breather and breath, just breathing. It's all one seamless happening, without division. But here's the paradox, once you see there's no self, you can finally play at being one. You can enjoy the character you appear as, without believing the role is all you are. You can be kind without needing to prove your goodness. You can fail without being diminished. You can love without fear of loss, because love is not something you give, it's what you are. Life becomes a kind of divine theater. You bow deeply to your part, not as an ego defending its lines, but as consciousness delighting in its own infinite creativity. When you know you're dreaming, you don't need to wake up to enjoy the dream. You simply know. And that knowing, that quiet recognition behind all experience, is peace. It is what sages have called liberation, enlightenment, nirvana, or simply, home. So if the self you're searching for doesn't exist, what's left? Everything. When the clouds of thought dissolve, the sky was never gone. When the waves settle, the ocean was always there. And when the I falls silent, what remains is life itself, boundless, radiant, awake. That's what you've been all along. Not a seeker on a path, not a soul in need of salvation, but the pure awareness in which all paths and all souls appear. You are not in the universe. You are the universe, momentarily playing at being human. A deep pause. The music fades, replaced by a soft hum, like a single note held infinitely. So, my friend, stop trying to find yourself. There is no one to find. There is only the wonder of this moment, this breath, this dance of being. Let go. Let everything be as it is. And you'll see, there was never anyone holding on in the first place. The self you're searching for doesn't exist. But the one who's listening right now, the awareness behind these words, has never been born and can never die. It's not something you possess. It's what you are. Eternal. Playful. Free. And that, you see, is the joke the universe has been telling itself all along.